I'm Matthew Pryor, and this movie is the overview of the history of World War I. The war began in 1914 when the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, was assassinated by Serbian nationalists. Austria-Hungary then declared war on Serbia, and due to the system of alliances, there became two sides of the war, the Allied powers and the Central Powers. World War I had an influx of new technology, including the machine gun, which was a heavy gun without much mobility that required multiple men to operate. It was extremely powerful and could kill enemies quickly and from long distances. Poison gas was effective because it could be thrown into enemy trenches. This included chlorine gas and mustard gas. Airplanes were used because it could support the armies from the air with machine guns or bombs. Tanks were extremely powerful. They could destroy enemy artillery and they could take over enemy cities. Submarines were boats that could shoot torpedoes to sink enemy ships, and they could force naval blockades. Because of the lethality of new technology, the war was fought in a series of trenches. At the beginning of the war, the United States declared neutrality. In May 1915, a German U-boat sunk the British liner Lusitania, which had 128 United States citizens aboard. In January 1917, Arthur Zimmermann of Germany sent a telegram to Mexico trying to get them to declare war on the United States. This telegram was then intercepted by the British, and they told the United States about it. Because of these events, in April 1917, war was declared on Germany, and in December on Austria-Hungary. The goal of the war was to make the world safe for democracy. Extreme measures were taken in order to win the war, such as the Selective Service Act, which initiated the draft, and the use of rations. The Food Administration was set up to get food to the troops. The Department of Labor brought workers from the Midwest to factories in the East. Many women worked jobs that men held before the war. Propaganda was created in order to help create a pro-war environment. When the United States joined the fight, it was considered the turning point of the war, and they fought on the Western Front. The United States forces fought under the command of General John Pershing. 4 million Americans fought, and 110,000 died. 43,000 of those were due to the influenza pandemic. When the United States arrived to fight in June 1917, it had a great effect on the French morale. Most of the United States fighting occurred in 1918. From March 1918 to July 1918, the Germans launched the Spring Offensive. The Germans had a lot more manpower, so they tried to defeat the Allies before the United States could fully supply them with manpower and materials. The Spring Offensive was fought in northern France and in Belgium. A lot of Allied troops and German troops died. The difference was that the United States still had plenty of troops on their way, while the Germans did not. Together, the Allies were able to hold their ground and not let the Germans advance. In August 1918, the Allies countered with the 100 Days Offensive with the addition of 1 to 2 million new American troops. The Allies were able to push the depleted German forces out of France. The Allies pushed the Germans back past the Hindenburg Line, which was a large German defensive position that they held for most of the war, and they pushed them back past a lot of territory that they gained at the beginning of the war. The Germans signed an armistice with the Allies on November 11, 1918. It marked a victory of the war for the Allies and a defeat for Germany, although it was not a formal surrender. The armistice was signed in the railroad car of Ferdinand Foch, who was the commander-in-chief of the Allied armies. On June 28, 1919, exactly 5 years after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the Treaty of Versailles was officially signed, and it ended the war. The Treaty of Versailles was very harsh on Germany, making them take the total blame for the war and making them have to pay for it all. Woodrow Wilson pushed for the 14 points, which was his idea for a peace treaty to end the war. The Germans liked the 14 points because it wasn't nearly as harsh on them. However, the Allied leaders did not like it, so that is why they went with the Treaty of Versailles. They did use the idea, however, of creating the League of Nations, which was one of Wilson's ideas outlined in the 14 points. The Republican Congress did not want to be tied to the League of Nations, therefore, the United States did not sign the Treaty of Versailles.